We've heard a lot over the past decade or so about how companies can get more competitive by boosting productivity or improving quality results or involving employees. Ultimately, though, it all comes down to one issue, and that's who can deliver the most value to the customer. That hasn't changed, and it never will. What has changed is how. Just what do you have to do to get that value edge? It used to be that if you could do things right the first time, that was enough of a differentiator to give you a value edge. But as more and more organizations joined the quality movement, that wasn't so special anymore. The value edge came from being able to do the right things right the first time, and a thing called customer-focused quality emerged. Well, today, everybody's getting customer-focused, or at least they say they are. So where is the value edge coming from today? It's coming from the next dimension of quality, and that's time. What I mean by that is taking time out of processes so that you can be fast and nimble, so you can be flexible, so you can be responsive to the needs of the customer.
When we talk about taking time out of processes, we're not talking about personal time management or just-in-time strategies. We're talking about getting rid of steps that don't add value in the eyes of the customer. When you look at virtually any process in any industry, you find that as little as 1% of the total process time is spent on steps that add value to the customer. Fortunately, most of that lost time can be eliminated. In fact, we know that as much as 75% of the time can be taken out of almost any process. I know that sounds extreme, but in our experience over many years and in many companies, we have yet to find a process where we couldn't take at least 75% of the time out. In the past, when we wanted to streamline a process, we focused on what people did in the process. We did things that helped people do their work in less time. The thinking was that if the people in the process are as busy and efficient as possible, then the process itself is as efficient as possible. And we've been very successful over the years with this kind of thinking. Look around. People are working hard. So you can't take significant amounts of time out of a process by making people work harder or faster.
It's not that people are lazy or incompetent. Of course they're not. And all the steps in the process probably made sense at one time. But when you focus on the entire process instead of the individual steps, and when you analyze what's really important to the customer, you begin to see that the process has become overcomplicated. There are a lot of steps that don't need to be in there. So what we're talking about is getting those obstacles out of people's way so they can add the value they know how to add.
Because people really aren't the problem. Check it out for yourself. Walk out into your department. Stand in the middle and look around. You'll probably find your people are 99% busy. The reports, the paper. Look at how many of those things are out there and how many of them are being touched by human hands. Because if nobody's working on them, it's a good bet that no value is being added. Our rule of observation is, although people are usually 99% busy, the things going through the process, whether paper or product, are 99% idle. And most important, you have to identify each step that happens to the thing as one that adds value for the customer or one that doesn't add value. There are three criteria, and a step has to pass all three to qualify. First, a step adds value if the customer recognizes it as important. If the customer doesn't care about it, you're not adding anything. Second, a step adds value if it physically changes the thing. If you just move it from one inbox to another or file it or copy it, that's not adding value. And third, you add value if you do the step right the first time. Clearly, the customer doesn't want to pay for correcting something when it should have been done right in the first place. All the value-added flow analyses we've done, we keep getting the same kind of numbers. Process after process and industry after industry. Only 10 to 15% of the steps in most processes add value for the customer. And those value-adding steps typically represent only 1% of the time a thing spends in the process. And that's why, as a practical matter, in every process we've ever encountered, at least 75% of that non-value-adding time can be eliminated.
One of the most interesting things you find is that as you take time out of processes, your quality results go up. Part of the reason is that things like inspection and rework loops are non-value added. And if you're going to take those steps out, you've got to get rid of the need for them. You've got to do things right. Also, when you've taken time out of a process, if something does go wrong, the problem will be discovered sooner. The trail will still be warm, so you can track it back to the root cause and eliminate it. There are a lot of improvements like that waiting to be made, but before you can make them, you have to get over the old mentality of that's how it's always been done. And once you do that, you begin to picture some very powerful possibilities. As you remove steps from a process, you find you have a clearer view of the customer. You can develop products and services that better fit customer needs, and you can get them to market faster. But it's not just how fast you can do things. You find that you can add value in ways you'd never even thought of before. For example, suppose it takes you 4 weeks to process a customer order, but suppose your customer uses your product every week. That means that in order to do business with you, the customer has to forecast how much he'll need over a 4-week period, accept shipment of a month's worth, and store it until it's needed. But if you can cut your process down to 1 week, you can ship your customer a week's worth every week, and that cuts out all the hassle of forecasting and storing and tracking for the customer. And that's precisely the kind of value added that customers are demanding, and it's being asked of organizations of all sizes in every industry. And now you can do it by focusing on time. To provide more value to customers today, companies have to focus on taking time out of processes, because it's only by doing this that you can be nimble and agile enough to respond quickly to your customers' needs.
Wow. Sit.
People aren't the problem. They're busy 99% of the time. But when you focus on the thing going through the process, you find that it's idle 99% of the time. By doing a value-added flow analysis, you can analyze every step in the process and determine which ones add value and which ones don't. There are 3 criteria for defining a value-added step. The customer has to care about it, it has to physically change the thing in process, and it has to be done right the first time.
There are all kinds of benefits you can realize by taking time out of processes. You can deliver products and services to the customer faster. You can get new products to market sooner. Your quality results go up. You spend less time doing unnecessary tasks that don't add value, like checking and expediting. And you may find whole new ways to add value for your customers that you'd never even thought of before. It's all right there for you when you begin to operate in this new dimension of quality.